In this video, we take a look at personal stories that address the odd behavior of the non-affected. I know this is an interesting topic for many of the affected, as we see such a common sense of belligerence and denial from those not experiencing the effect. Subscribers and support group members are sharing these stories to let you know you're not alone. Story 1, WS. I want to discuss missing people. I think it's important as no one seems to care or be addressing this angle. I've been sitting on this for a couple of years, so prepare to have your mind blown. Taken from the FBI's National Crime Information Center, NCIC, for the last 10 years on average, 750,000 people in the United States disappear, go missing, or just vanish. I picked 2013 at random to break down. Once again from FBI's NCIC in 2013, 627,911 people went missing. 462,567 people under 18 went missing. 165,344 people over 18 went missing. 247,931 were females under the age of 18. Of course, some of these can be explained away for various reasons, accidents, health issues, some go off-grid, etc. People are still upset about September 11th when 3,000 or so died. Can you imagine what would happen if they reported this on the evening news? That over 20,000 underage females disappear every month? Some think we're merely a food source for the reptilians that control our world. I don't know, but I think this is bigger than the Mandela effect alone because the info is available to everybody online, no matter what timeline or reality you're in. But I do urge caution because if they don't like what you're doing, you could be on the missing persons list. Keep fighting the good fight. Much love and respect, WS. Story 2, SW. I officially woke up in 2016. Strangely enough, I've been revisiting Christianity and religion and became increasingly more spiritual, and then the ME started to take hold after this. I began researching and watching numerous videos. I wouldn't say I agree with 100% of the previous versions of things out there, but I do agree with a good 85%. I began talking to my family and friends as my entire world had been shaken to the core. Most were not receptive. My mom was slightly. However, it had been like an avalanche in my life the more I studied it, and the more I observed the things that seemed to literally be changing from one day to the next. Now my mom, who was once at least capable of any type of critical thinking. The same with my husband. We used to have all sorts of philosophical, deep conversations, and now, if anything slightly rocks his belief system or perception of things, he immediately shuts down. I remember having deep intellectual conversations quite often with numerous people in my teenage years. Most people in those days were receptive, even if they disagreed or came to a different conclusion. I'm finding it more and more difficult to talk to anyone. I feel like people themselves are different. I feel slightly different, but better. I feel awake, spiritual, and enlightened. I'm just disheartened that I can't share it with others. The more I try, the more harm it seems to do. I need to find an online support community. SW. Story 3, KM. I've been affected by the effect all my life. I could go on for hours about the things that supposedly never happened but did in my reality. I've always been isolated in my own existence and experiences. My own parents are extremely Christian and are in complete denial of the Lion and Lamb verse changing. They refuse to pick up an old King James copy and even look at it. This is part of the experiment, I feel, that something is trying to see who will accept complete denial and choose to follow blindly down a certain path. I feel it's more of a congratulations to those who do not live in denial and refuse to call themselves forgetful. I know some of the changes are debunkable, but too many are strikingly obvious. Way too many intelligent people not to be fact, and this is why I feel obligated to stand up for myself and reach out to those who may be affected as well. Peace, KM. Story 4, KS. I have a laundry list, so glad it has a name, it being ME. Story, I grew up with a dad who was a former Marine and who made us watch Gomer Pyle with him. I'd been a nurse for 30 years and I worked in the early 90s on weekends at Garden Sylvan, an AIDS hospital hospice for these poor young kids that were dying when everybody was so ignorant and running around abandoning children and being hazmat suit hysterical. Anyway, because Jim Neighbors was baked involuntarily into my psyche, I was sorry to hear and read of his passing in the 90s. There was a buzz, his face on People magazine, partly because of his passing and partly because he never came out. At the Emmys, there was a special nod to his passing in memorandum. along with clips of his famous NC accent. Fast forward to 2013, and a friend drops off a recent People and some books as I was recovering from an operation, and lo and behold, Jim Neighbors is celebrating his marriage to his longtime partner, healthy and happy, absolutely no mistake in recall. Something you said that really stuck with me was about family members, especially that of close people, being a little off. Suddenly loving a food they historically hated or were deathly allergic to, and now they have no allergy, or behavior changes that are bizarre, like a robotic aspect or an inappropriate non-response. With me, it's especially the sister. I was always very close to her, and now she's somebody I don't recognize. It isn't psychological, it's something else. Her husband has noticed it, and my younger sister made the remark that she didn't know what happened to the old Patty. She's normal and functional, a child psychologist, but perhaps I'd say a third or a quarter of the person I knew, the rest is all gone. When I attempt to engage in specific dialogues with her on specific subjects, she behaves as though I'm not in the room. When pressed, she'll say, "I don't see it that way, I don't see it that way, I don't see it that way," in a robotic fashion. It's so stunning, I almost burst out laughing. In 2013, I contracted sepsis and was told, had I not been seen that day, I would have gone into organ failure and would have been dead by sundown. I received no response at all from Patty. LOL, I swear to God, you can't make this stuff up. No drama has occurred, nothing that anyone could attribute this to. It's like someone flipped a switch. I was nearly murdered in Golden Gate Park in March of 1969 by a jealous boyfriend. The gun cocked and loaded. He had a meltdown and I never saw it coming. I was 18. I talked him down and got home and left San Francisco in 24 hours for the East Coast. My mom apparently had been 3 weeks prior having lucid dreams of me in a white car that was dented on the driver's side. My parents had moved to CT in June '68, 4 days after my high school graduation. They had never seen Bill's car, white, nor did they know the driver's side had been dented the week before. I joke around that the reason behind the non-response is because they actually think I'm dead. My dad said my mom would awaken crying, saying I had been shot point blank in the chest. And as I died, I said, "I can't believe you shot me." She would get to me and then be hurled feet back. She literally saw the event as it happened, except instead of dying, there was a different outcome. Or that's how it appears anyway. I've always felt like a stranger in a strange land, looking for breadcrumbs, Hansel and Gretel style. KS. Story 5, JB. Very happy to hear the word support group for the Mandela effect together finally. I live in New York City, and even though there are 8 million people here, I can't seem to find anyone who gets it. I've searched on Google using every search term I can think of along the lines of Mandela-affected support group, and there's nothing. It's becoming increasingly difficult to try and wrap my head around some of the changes, and there isn't anyone to discuss it with. I only have videos to watch and then my own thoughts. Trying to explain to someone who isn't aware results in one of two responses. Either one, they changed it. Like, they changed the Monopoly man from having a monocle to not having one. Or two, you don't remember it correctly. I 100% do. I know it like I know my own name. I doubt there's an actual support group here, but if you've heard of any in New York and you want to connect us, I'm down for a cup of coffee, a chat. This is blowing my mind. JB. Story 6, K. I've found a few friends that remember a different version of things and reality than how it is now, but most of the family that I have and other people I speak with don't recall the changes as it's always been that way to them. Even the same brother that I've had a conversation about Star Wars line says Chick-fil-A with a CK has always been spelled correctly. But when we worked together a few years ago, we would stop in there when they were giving away free spicy sandwiches, and I argued with him about why they wasted their time spelling it wrong. Why don't they just add a K to make it spelled correctly? What are they trying to do, save money on a sign, space, and ink and printing? But that's what was said. He laughed and said it's a marketing ploy to get you to notice it since it's spelled wrong. He now does not have any recall of us having the conversation and says that I'm crazy because it's always been spelled correctly. I don't know when the first shift supposedly happened or why or really what's behind everything that's going on, but I do know somewhere in the last 7 to 10 years something inside of me changed. My outlook on life and this reality became different. Somewhere in that time frame, I remember feeling like I no longer belonged here and that I'm not supposed to be here. Now this was years before I knew the effect's name or changes going on. I just had the feeling where I didn't fit in anymore. Okay. Story 7T. I've attempted to speak to family and close friends about the things I've experienced, and it falls on deaf ears. Just yesterday, during a car ride with my fiance, I asked her how she could notice some of the same situations and have nothing to say about them. "There's nothing I can do," was her response. I'm questioning reality at this point, and being connected with folks that actually get it is a godsend. About 12 to 15 years ago, I noticed at a funeral of a friend how the Lord's Prayer had changed from what I knew it to be. And like I said, that was a good decade or more. Hence, I thought I didn't need to look down to recite it out loud amongst my fellow mourners, but it seems I was not in line with how it's written down. Even then, I mentioned this to other guests I knew there from my school days. They didn't notice it until I brought it up to them, to which they replied, "Oh yeah, you're right. It's different from our day." Also, I have a colleague at work who is a devout Christian, so I challenged him on the lion versus the wolf lying down with the lamb. Instantly he said lion, and he's at church every Sunday, even though I pointed out to him that Saturday is supposed to be the Lord's Day, which he also knew to be the case. Anyway, he's heavily involved with the church and always has been. He's approximately 42 years of age, so he's got quite a shock when he did a Google search on it and found quotes relating to the wolf lying down with the lamb. Even I know it was the lion, and I'm not religious. I believe in God, but not religion, if that makes sense to you. Take care, A. Although many of our loved ones, friends, family, and community members often react with disdain or uninterest, it's important, so important, to remember that we are not going through this completely on our own. We may be spread out, but we are not alone.
I've been carrying